So you might have been wondering who was playing that really rockin' saxophone. Well, even if you weren't, it's okay. We don't judge. Duke Ellington and his orchestra, Paul Gonsalves. This was just a mini version of Ellington's band and an album devoted to the smoky sound of Paul Gonsalves. By the way, from Massachusetts, originally from Brockton. Take the A Train, and then we heard before that just a sittin' and a rockin'. Paul Gonsalves. Joe Sleeza came up with that description of Paul Gonsalves' sax playing. Smoky, so apropos, as everything Joe said and did was. Before that, well, there was no before that. The whole show began with those two tunes. No, there was no before that. We had already updated you. It's 10:36 right now on 90.5 WICN. We're Jazz Plus for New England. Hope things are well with you. And I'm Howard Kaplan. We've got lots more music coming your way. We've got Pamela Hines coming your way on the Jazz Matinee. I want to tell you right now that support for WICN comes from the Celebrity Series of Boston, presenting the Monterey Jazz.
So, today is the 9th of March, 3/9, originally 1/9. And we're doing another Donnie Darko Donald Trump installment now because my brother Jason, as in Ja-son, dropped this on me as he was leaving. He said he saw the movie, so he doesn't want to read the book. I haven't seen the movie, so we're going to read this out loud on the channel. We're going to go on a novel journey together. Nov-el. So my brother Jason gives this to me. Jason, July, August, September, October, November. Son of Jah, same as Jesus. Same name, just a different way of saying it. Jesus is a Greek name. Yeshua is Hebrew. Joshua of Joshes, joshing, joking. The book he paid $16 for. The receipt was in the book. Ready Player One. So with the tax, it was $16.88. 8 and 8 is 16. Remember, Trump equals 88 in English gematria, and he was elected in 2016. Donnie Darko wears the shirt that says Triumph, the motorcycle company, while he's sitting in his psychiatrist's office in the year 1988. The film takes place in 1988. It was released in 2001 on 1/19, January 19th. Same year as 9/11, 9/11/01 and 1/19/01. And Donald, the countdown Donnie is given by frankly. And look at the till number was 33 here. The countdown, 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. 28 plus 6 plus 42 plus 12 equals 88. That's the countdown to the end of the world. This was transaction, or yeah, it looks like the number was 1881. So Trump equals 88 in English gematria. T's 20, R is 18, U is 21, M's 13, P is 16, adds to 88. Biff was based on, Bob Gill has acknowledged Biff was based on Trump. Biff equaling 23/5, 23, the 11th hour, 11 p.m., the witching hour, sacrifice rituals of the witch rituals, of sorcery, of the pharmacoi, of the pharmacies, of the Pharisees. So, 88 miles per hour in Back to the Future, Biff takes over the DeLorean. He follows Marty and Doc to Hilldale in the checkered cab which says Luxor on it, the Stargate reference. And then old Biff in 2015 steals the DeLorean, goes back to 1955, gives young Biff the Gray's Sports Almanac, the Gray Aliens Sports Almanac, documenting the next 50 years sporting results to make his young self rich. Biff, to hit, to blow, to strike, fake, 23/5, same as Biff. And, or the classic part where old Biff says to young Biff, "It's leave, it's make like a tree and leave. You sound like an idiot when you say it like that," which was make like a tree and get out of here, the wrong way young Biff would say it. "You sound like a butthead." Trump. Time traveler. His uncle was given all of the Tesla technology that the government stole from Tesla's office after he died. What did they cite? They cited some national security thing to take all of Tesla's work. And Trump's uncle, well, what did he do? Was it John Trump, his uncle, or is it Fred? Fred's the father, right? And Donald's middle name is John. So I think the uncle was John, right? He apparently stumbled upon time travel from Tesla's work and gave it to old Donald, and now we got a time traveling president who's probably, I would think, like Raymond. I think Raymond Reddington is based on Trump. It's the feeling I get, that he's protected, that he's an informant protected by the government on long standing, probably. So let's start reading. Ready Player One. Are you ready for this? Ready or not, here we come. This was copywritten in 2011 by Dark All Day Incorporated. Excerpt from Armanda, copyright 2015 by Dark All Day Incorporated. That's interesting. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. For Susan and Libby, because there is no map for where we are going. Where we're going, we don't need roads, and we don't need a map either, apparently.
This is Jordan Rich. Join me for On Mic every Sunday evening at 11:30 p.m.
Come on, Jordan Rich. Rich Jordan.
On Mic features intimate conversations with actors, writers,
Everyone my age remembers where they were and what they were doing when they first heard about the contest. I was sitting in my hideout watching cartoons when the news bulletin broke in on my video feed announcing that James Halliday had died during the night. I'd heard of Halliday, of course, everyone had. He was the video game designer responsible for creating the Oasis, a massively multiplayer online game that had gradually evolved into the globally networked virtual reality most of humanity now used on a daily basis. The unprecedented success of the Oasis, had made Halliday one of the wealthiest people in the world. At first, I couldn't understand why the media was making such a big deal of the billionaire's death. After all, the people of planet Earth had other concerns. The ongoing energy crisis, catastrophic climate change, widespread famine, poverty, and disease, 6 wars. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Normally, the news feeds didn't interrupt everyone's interactive sitcoms and soap operas unless something really major had happened, like the outbreak of some new killer virus, or another major city vanishing in a mushroom cloud. Big stuff like that. As famous as he was, Halliday's death should have warranted only a brief segment on the evening news, so the unwashed masses could shake their heads in envy when the newscasters announced the obscenely large amount of money that would be doled out to the rich man's heirs. But that was the rub. James Halliday had no heirs. He had died a 67-year-old bachelor with no living relatives and, by most accounts, without a single friend. He'd spent the last 15 years of his life in self-imposed isolation, during which time, if the rumors were to be believed, he'd gone completely insane. So the real jaw-dropping news that January morning, the news that had everyone from Toronto to Tokyo crapping in their cornflakes, concerned the contents of Halliday's last will and testament and the fate of his vast fortune. Halliday had prepared a short video message along with instructions that it be released to the world media at the time of his death. He'd also arranged to have a copy of the video emailed to every single Oasis user that same morning. I still remember hearing the familiar electronic chime when it arrived in my inbox just a few seconds after I saw the first news bulletin. His video message was actually a meticulously constructed short film titled Anorak's Invitation. A famous eccentric, Halliday had harbored a lifelong obsession with the 1980s, the decade during which he'd been a teenager, and Anorak's Invitation was crammed with obscure 80s pop culture references, nearly all of which were lost on me the first time I viewed it. The entire video was just over 5 minutes in length, and in the days and weeks that followed, it would become the most scrutinized piece of film in history, surpassing even the Zapruder film in the amount of painstaking frame-by-frame analysis devoted to it. My entire generation would come to know every second of Halliday's message by heart. Anorak's Invitation begins with the sound of trumpets. The opening of an old song called Dead Man's Party. I was struck by lightning walking down the street. The song plays over a dark screen for the first few seconds until the trumpets are joined by a guitar, and that's when Halliday appears. But he's not a 67-year-old man ravaged by time and illness. He looks just as he did on the cover of Time magazine back in 2014. A tall, thin, healthy man in his early 40s, with unkempt hair and his trademark horn-rimmed glasses. He's also wearing the same clothing he wore in the Time cover photo, faded jeans and a vintage Space Invaders t-shirt. Halliday is at a high school dance being held in a large gymnasium. He's surrounded by teenagers whose clothing, hairstyles, and dance moves all indicate that the time period is the late 1980s. Halliday is dancing, too, something no one ever saw him do in real life. Grinning maniacally, he spins in rapid circles, swinging his arms and head in time with the song, flawlessly cycling through several signature 80s dance moves. But Halliday has no dance partner. He is, as the saying goes, dancing with himself. Dancing with myself, oh, oh, oh. Idol. Bully idol. Idolatry. A few lines of text appear briefly at the lower left-hand corner of the screen, listing the name of the band, the song's title, the record label, and the year of release, as if this were an old music video airing on MTV. Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party, MCA Records, 1985. When the lyrics kick in, Halliday begins to lip-sync along, still gyrating. All dressed up with nowhere to go, walking with a dead man over my shoulder. Don't run away, it's only me. He abruptly stops dancing and makes a cutting motion with his right hand, silencing the music. At the same moment, the dancers and gymnasium behind him vanish, and the scene around him suddenly changes. Halliday now stands at the front of a funeral parlor next to an open casket. The footnote here is his surroundings are actually from a scene in the 1989 film Heathers. Halliday appears to have digitally recreated the funeral parlor set and then inserted himself into it. A second, much older Halliday lies inside the casket, his body emaciated and ravaged by cancer. Shiny quarters cover each of his eyelids. Another footnote here. High-resolution scrutiny reveals that both quarters were minted in 1984. The younger Halliday gazes down at the corpse of his older self with mock sadness, then turns to address the assembled mourners. And another footnote, the mourners are actually all actors and extras from the same funeral scene in Heathers. Winona Ryder and Christian Slater are clearly visible in the audience, sitting near the back.